All right, so today we're going to dive into something really fascinating.
Okay.
It's the Windover bog bodies.
Oh, wow.
And this all started back in 1982 in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
A construction crew was digging a pond, and they came across, well, a skull.
Wow.
But this wasn't just any skull. It turned out to be over 7,000 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
This incredible discovery gave us this amazing look into a prehistoric community right here in North America.
That's incredible.
So we're going to use all sorts of stuff like archaeological reports,
Okay.
even scientific analyses, and even some firsthand accounts from the people who were actually there
Wow.
to really piece together what life was like back then.
Yeah. I think what's really fascinating about Windover is it wasn't like a, planned archaeological dig or anything.
Yeah.
It was completely by chance.
Total accident.
Just imagine you're operating the backhoe.
Yeah.
You're expecting to hit dirt, and all of a sudden you find human remains.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a surprise on the job.
Yeah.
So what happened after they found the skull? I mean, finding a skull during construction, that's gotta cause quite a stir.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
It did. But to the developers' credit, they immediately halted construction and called the archaeologists, which, was the right decision.
Yeah.
It ultimately led to one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in North America.
That's amazing. It really makes you think how many other sites like this are out there just waiting to be, discovered.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about the excavation itself. I've read that, digging in a bog presents some pretty unique challenges.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Windover site is what's known as a wet site,
Okay.
meaning that the remains were actually preserved in peat,
Interesting.
which is basically this waterlogged, spongy material
Okay.
that forms when plant matter partially decomposes.
I see.
And the archaeologists had to be incredibly careful. I mean, they couldn't disturb the remains.
Yeah.
And they also had to keep them moist during the entire excavation.
It sounds very delicate. I actually read that they used chopsticks at some point,
Yeah, it's true.
which is a far cry from, the shovels and trowels we normally think of
Yeah.
when we think about archaeology.
It just shows you how precise they had to be.
Yeah.
But the real shock came when they realized that many of the skulls actually still contain brain tissue.
Wow.
I mean, 91 out of the 168 individuals found.
That's amazing.
That type of preservation is almost unheard of.
Wow. So how is it even possible for brain tissue to survive, for thousands of years?
Well, the bog played a key role in that.
Okay.
The lack of oxygen in the waterlogged peat basically stopped bacteria from growing,
Okay.
which would normally decompose the organic matter.
That makes sense.
And the acidic water in the bog acted as a natural preservative, so it basically pickled the remains.
So it's almost like the bog created this, perfect time capsule,
Right.
preserving this snapshot of life from thousands of years ago.
Exactly.
That's incredible. So let's travel back in time for a sec.
What can you tell us about the people who lived and died at Windover?
So based on the evidence we have, the Windover people were hunter-gatherer fishers,
Okay.
and they lived between 7,000 and 8,000 years ago.
Wow.
The fact that there were so many burials suggests that they lived in that area for a long time,
Oh, okay.
maybe moving seasonally to follow food, but always coming back to this spot.
So not nomadic, but not fully settled either?
Yeah, kind of like an in-between lifestyle.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of what was available,
Yeah.
but still maintaining a connection to that location.
That's really interesting. And what about the skeletal remains themselves? What can they tell us?
Well, they tell us a lot about their lives, actually.
Okay.
For example, there's evidence of osteoarthritis,
Mm-hmm.
which suggests they had pretty physically demanding lives.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the wear patterns on their teeth show us that their diet included a lot of gritty food,
Oh, okay.
probably from grinding seeds and roots. Interesting. But even with these tough conditions, it seems like they had a strong sense of community.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, some of these individuals lived well into their 70s, which back then was a very long life.
Yeah, it really was.
One of the most interesting things I found was the skeleton of an individual who lived with spina bifida, which is a birth defect that would make survival extremely challenging.
Absolutely.
And the fact that this person lived into adulthood tells us that they were cared for and supported by their community.
Right. It's a good reminder that compassion and cooperation, that's not a new thing.
Yeah.
These values have always been important
Yeah.
for human survival.
For a very long time.
Yeah. And there's another discovery at Windover that challenges our assumptions about early humans. their DNA.
Oh, okay.
And that's a story with a lot of twists and turns.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, let's get into that then.
Okay. So when scientists first extracted DNA from those amazingly preserved brains at Windover, there was a lot of excitement. It was a chance to look into the ancestry of early Americans in a way that had never been done before.
It must felt like they were unlocking this whole new chapter of human history. So what did the DNA analysis reveal?
Well, that's where things took an unexpected turn.
Okay.
The analysis actually showed no direct genetic link between the Windover people and modern Native American groups.
Wow, that's surprising. So what are the possible explanations for that? Does it mean their lineage just died out?
Yeah.
Or could it even, challenge what we know about how humans populated the Americas?
Well, that's the big question.
Yeah.
And it's led to a lot of debate among, archaeologists and geneticists.
Yeah.
So one possibility is that the Windover people represent this really early migration to the Americas.
Okay.
One that actually predates the ancestors of modern Native American populations.
Interesting.
And their lineage might have just disappeared over time.
Okay.
Maybe replaced or absorbed by later migrations.
So they could be like a missing piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
A glimpse into a much earlier chapter of human history in the Americas than we thought.
Right. Their DNA could potentially rewrite what we know about the timing and roots of those early migrations to the continent.
Yeah.
It's also possible that there are other undiscovered ancient communities out there.
Okay.
With similar genetic profiles just waiting to be found.
That's a really fascinating thought. It's a good reminder that archaeology, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
New discoveries can change everything we thought we knew up at the past. And that decision to leave half the Windover site unexcavated seems pretty significant now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It shows how forward-thinking the researchers were.
Yeah.
They recognized that, the technology back then had limits.
Yeah.
So they decided to preserve part of the site.
Okay.
For future scientists who would have even better tools and knowledge.
Wow. So it's like they left this time capsule for future archaeologists to open when they have the right tools to unlock its full potential. It's pretty amazing to think what secrets Windover might still be holding. And speaking of challenging assumptions, there's another amazing discovery we have to talk about.
Okay.
Those incredibly well-preserved textiles they found at the site.
Right.
These weren't just scraps of fabric, were they?
No, not at all. The Windover textiles were really sophisticated. We're talking about intricate designs woven from palm fiber.
Oh.
It shows a level of craftsmanship that's really impressive.
I read that some of these textiles are older than the pyramids of Egypt.
Yeah, that's true.
That just blows my mind. It completely changes how we think about early hunter-gatherer societies.
Yeah.
We often think of them as just focused on survival.
Right.
But the Windover textiles show a culture that really appreciated artistry and skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we shouldn't underestimate the ingenuity and creativity of people from the past.
Yeah.
No matter how long ago they lived. And the work that went into extracting and preserving these fragile fabrics, it allows us to connect with that artistry in a really tangible way. Just imagine holding a piece of woven fabric.
Wow.
That was made by someone over 7,000 years ago.
It would be like touching history itself. It makes you think about the stories woven into those fibers, the hands that made them, the lives they were a part of.
Yeah.
It reminds us that the past is so much more than just dates and facts.
Right.
It's a tapestry of human experiences, and every thread tells a story. And those stories can challenge our ideas, expand our understanding, and connect us to those who came before us.
Exactly. Windover is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
That single site has shown us so much about early human societies in North America, from their sophisticated textiles to their burial practices and even their genetic history, which is still a bit of a mystery.
It's like we're looking through a window into this lost world, a world that was so much more complex and interesting than we might have imagined. What are some of the other details about Windover that stand out to you?
Well, one of the things that I find particularly fascinating is the evidence they left behind about their burial practices.
Okay.
Scientists were able to figure out the time of death and even the season of burial for a lot of the individuals.
Wow.
Just by analyzing their remains and the plants found with them.
Can you explain how they were able to do that? It sounds like something out of a detective schmeal.
It is a bit like detective work. For instance, the pollen found in those burial layers.
Yeah.
It can show us which plants were flowering at the time of burial.
Okay.
So that tells us the season.
Wow.
And by looking at the decomposition of the remains and how the bones are positioned,
Yeah.
they can estimate how long a body was decomposing before it was buried.
So they could create a timeline, like a narrative of each person's death and burial.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Are there any specific examples that show this?
Oh, there are several. One that comes to mind is a woman whose stomach contents show that she'd eaten elderberries, nightshade, and holly right before she died.
Oh, wow.
And that combination of plants might have been like a medicinal drink.
Oh, okay.
So maybe she was trying to treat an illness.
So it shows their knowledge of plants and how they use them for healing.
Right. And then there's the antler tine that was found embedded in a hip bone.
Oh, wow.
Which tells us about the dangers they faced in their daily lives. Each skeleton has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And these little details bring those stories to life in a way that's really captivating.
It's a good reminder that these weren't just, nameless figures from the past.
Right.
They were real people. They had hopes and fears and experiences that still connect with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Their lives, their deaths, their struggles, their triumphs, they all offer us a glimpse into the shared human experience.
Yeah.
That goes beyond time itself.
Yeah, and Windover, with its amazing preservation and the wealth of information it provides, gives us this unique opportunity to connect with that shared humanity in a really profound way. It makes us question our assumptions, broaden our understanding, and remember that the past is never truly gone.
Right. It's woven into who we are.
It is.
Just waiting to be discovered and understood.
Exactly. And maybe by understanding the past, we can understand ourselves a little bit better.
Yeah. It's amazing how, these small details, a meal, an injury, a woven pattern, can make the past feel so real.
It really is.
It connects us to these people across, thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes you wonder what other things we could learn if we, could fully figure out all the mysteries of Windover.
And that's the thing about archaeology, right?
Yeah.
There's always something more to discover, to learn, to question. I mean, Windover has really challenged what we thought we knew about early human societies.
Right.
About migration patterns and their technology.
Yeah.
But it's also brought up a bunch of new questions that we're just starting to think about.
If the Windover people weren't directly related to modern Native American groups, which the DNA seems to suggest, then who were they?
Right.
Where did they come from? How did they get to this place?
And what happened to their lineage?
Yeah, those are some of the big mysteries that researchers are still really interested in.
Yeah.
Did their lineage just sort of disappear over time? Or did they mix with other groups?
Yeah.
Maybe there are other ancient communities out there with similar genetics that haven't been found yet?
Yeah.
Waiting to be discovered and add their stories to the history of humans in the Americas.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting to think that there might be all these stories still waiting to be told, all these connections waiting to be made.
Yeah.
And Windover, with all of its amazing preservation and all that information it's given us, it's a powerful reminder that the past is not just some fixed thing.
Right.
It's constantly changing as we find out new things.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of the Windover bog bodies, I'm curious what really stuck with you.
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so much.
Yeah.
But I think what's most striking about Windover is just how human it all feels. These weren't just some, primitive hunter-gatherers barely surviving.
Yeah.
They were skilled craftspeople.
Right.
They cared for each other.
Mm-hmm.
They were part of a real community.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But they also had joy and love and connection, just like we do.
Yeah. It's a powerful reminder that even though there's this huge gap of time between us, we share this common thread of humanity with these people.
Absolutely.
Their stories are our stories.
Mm-hmm.
Their struggles are our struggles.
Yeah.
And their wins are our wins.
Yeah, that's true.
And by looking into their world, we get a better understanding of our own place in this, grand scheme of human history.
So yeah, let the story of Windover stay with you. Let it spark your curiosity and make you question what you thought you knew.
Yeah.
And who knows what other incredible discoveries are out there.
Yeah, what other stories are waiting to be told?
Exactly. The journey of discovery never really ends. And each new thing we find out brings us a little bit closer to understanding who we are and where we came from.